Okay, welcome everyone. We have a 30-second early start, so hooray. Please rise for the Fargo Police Department Honor Guard. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome everyone to the annual Fargo Police Department Awards Ceremony. Last year, as many of you may know, due to COVID, we actually weren't able to have a ceremony. As the new chief, this is my first ceremony, so it's kind of exciting for me. I'm of course elated to be the chief of this department, extremely proud of all of the members for all of their accomplishments. I'd like to recognize I don't know if we have any of our elected officials present. Obviously, Mayor Mahoney is here, and he'll make some remarks shortly. But any other dignitaries, our honor guard, department staff. It's great to have a really good showing from our staff, and most importantly, families of our department members. So family members, if you're a family member, can you just kind of raise your hand? Excellent. Can we give them a round of applause, please? You are an important component to all the great work that happens, so thank you. Before I continue with my remarks, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Dr. Tim Mahoney.
Good evening. It's great for us all to be back together again. COVID, we were all apart, weren't together. About a year ago, my police force was challenged. We had an event in our community we'd never had before. We had a riot. The police officers had to stand in the heat, in the night, in the gas, in the different things going on, and hold the line and protect our city. The remarkable thing about the City of Fargo Police Force is you have to have respect for every one of the individuals that serve this city, because they didn't break down. They didn't do things they could have done that could have got on the cameras. And as mayor, frequently somebody takes out a cell phone and takes pictures of me, watches what I do, watch every move I do. That's 10 times over what happens to our police force. Any action you make, anything you do, people watch. Did they do something wrong? Did something happen? But no, we have to hold the line. You have to stand up there. And you are the department I'm proudest of. Well, firemen claim that too, but I have to say police is where my heart is. Because in the police, you guys are having interaction with the public every day. 10,000, 11,000 encounters a year. We expect you to do the right thing. We expect you to show professionalism. We expect you to be guardians of our community. And you do that. I'm very proud of our department and where it's headed. But we have to change as well. And one of the difficult things that's happening in our society right now, the men and women that I respect are being given disrespect. And the most important type of principle that I try to teach my son is honor and respect. We need to honor and respect each other, regardless where we come from, what we do. Now, as a trauma surgeon, when I took care of people, I didn't know where they came from. I just took care of them. And I hope to God when I scrubbed in that night, I had a team behind me that knew what to hand me, what to give me, helped me out to get through a difficult time. But just like a police force, you make difficult decisions. You see death, you see life, you see hard cases, you see abuse, you see a variety of things that not a lot of other people see. And you're expected to continue to do your job. You're expected to do the right thing. You're expected to do nothing that will embarrass anybody. And how about our family? How about those times you don't come home? How about those times you're delayed? I always remember the nights I'd call my wife and say, I'll be a while. Didn't know how long it'd take. And how many of you carry scars, all the years you've served, the things you've seen, the people you've taken care of? You know, those are the things that haunt us a bit. But the one thing I wanted to focus on we've done the new badge, and it's officer wellness. What I'd like you to get out of tonight's discussion is, I would want you all to take care of yourselves. So wellness to me is taking care of yourself, your family, and take care of each other. And that's extremely important to me. The worst thing I can see is a guy dying at 40, in which he's got a life ahead of him. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't know he had heart disease. Maybe I didn't have something. So my message to you all is take care of yourselves. Because I love to come up to people and say, happy retirement. I love to come up to see people and see their families and friends around them, surrounding them. Now tonight's important. It's important in many ways to me because we haven't done an award ceremony in this chamber. This is the first time we've done this. And we're going to recognize men and women in this community that have done things beyond just being a police officer. And I think that is something for us all to be very proud of. So I'm proud of you all. We'll make changes. I know the chief's pushing me on the budget here a little bit. Don't worry, we'll come to it. But sometimes it takes a little while to get 3 out of 5 votes. But we'll work on it. But we are going to make changes. And one of the things I really liked is a 10-hour shift now. We're going to 10-hour shifts. And people have, I didn't realize you didn't get every other weekend off. So in medicine, most of the time, you get every other weekend off. I didn't realize that. How many games you missed your kids, how many things you've missed in life because you weren't able to take the time. So we're going to focus on the department of continuing to build the finest force, state of North Dakota, the state of the United States. It's a police force, which I'm extremely proud of, and I want to give a round of applause to all of you for all the hard work you do.
Thank you, Mayor. It's truly good to have the support of our elected officials, and our department does have that support, and I think that's important. We cannot be successful without that relationship. One of the ironies, too, of tonight is a week ago today, we gathered as a community, as a law enforcement family, to honor the career and life of an individual that passed away much too soon. As the mayor mentioned, in this profession, we don't always get to say, when bad things happen, well, I think I'll take a week off and reflect on it. Our profession and the expectation of the community are that we get back out. Someone's got to be out on the next shift, keeping our community safe, keeping each other safe. And so one of the things that's very difficult in this profession is psychological well-being, mental health, physical wellness, which all ties together. And so we have to have that mental resiliency and intestinal fortitude that is often built up over time. New cops may not have that. You got to build that up. We have to put up with things that maybe other people don't. It's part of our responsibility, part of our mission. In order to be successful in the big picture, in order to keep our community safe and sustain our department for future service. So this is a really auspicious occasion as a week later now we gather to recognize some of the great work, exemplary work of our department personnel, both sworn and civilian, as well as some of our community members who over the last year have done many outstanding things. In Fargo, we're blessed to have a strong and supportive community that works with us as a team on a daily basis to keep our public spaces safe. You will hear tonight about a few of them who at some risk stepped in and assisted others to prevent harm. You will also hear about the incredible actions of our department team members. Their selfless acts encompass a gamut of situations: bravery and risk, sound judgment in critical situations, life-saving actions, professional dedication and commitment, and improving operational efficiency and community engagement. We continue to build upon our strong, cohesive, and diverse Fargo Police Department team through our newly created vision, mission, and core values. Core values are on the outside of the patch that you see on the screen. our vision and mission you'll see on our vision on our squad cars here in the near future. Those vision, mission, and core values are what the department ascribes to, how we hold ourselves accountable, and what our expectations are of each other, and what the community can expect from us in terms of our service and commitment to you. As such, we work not for individual success or individual reward. Rewards need to be informational, not aspirational, right? But for success of the larger organization and those it serves, our community and our city. And our team does that. The ceremony is an appropriate opportunity to positively reinforce and recognize the exemplary work of our department members. I'm very proud of the actions of our personnel in these incidents and of all department members who on a daily basis perform as guardians to our community. If I had it, my druthers, probably every one of our department members would get an award. But that would kind of take away from some of the maybe individual recognition for some of the work that they've done. But I guess the important point to remember is there's a lot that happens every day that the general community doesn't really know about because it doesn't make the news. But it's things that our officers deal with, had they not done so in the professional, respectful way that they do, could have otherwise ended up in more critical situations, up to and including death or injury to others or themselves. So it's the work that they do every day that's extremely important. I'm equally proud and thankful for the assistance of our community and the assistance they have given us time and again in terms of investigative support, information. The police and the community are part of a team. We need to work together to make sure that our community is safe. With that, I will pass off the reading to our Master of Ceremony, Sergeant Mike Bernier, affectionately known as the voice of radio. But we're going to put him on a picture platform tonight. So, Sergeant, take over, please.
Thank you, Chief. Welcome to the Fargo Police Department Award Ceremony. This evening, we take the time to honor Police Department personnel for accomplishments from a successful 2020 year. This ceremony is to recognize Police Department personnel, and we also recognize the desire for friends and family to take photographs. So if you want to, feel free to come up and take photographs as your family member or friend is getting their award. That's perfectly acceptable, and we can deal with that. We'll also have opportunity for, after the ceremony, to have punch and cookies and plenty of time to take photographs with the command staff and other people as well. Without further ado, we will begin our presentation. We'll start with the Citizen Citation for Distinguished Service. Would Dustin Quinn please come forward? Hello, Dustin. On September 7th, 2020, officers responded to an unconscious male in South Fargo. Officers found Dustin Quinn performing CPR on the patient. Officers later learned a female had been attempting CPR on the patient but was doing it incorrectly. Dustin saw this and ran to the patient to take over life-saving measures. Dustin has experience as a volunteer firefighter and is trained in CPR. Further investigation showed the patient had suffered an overdose and was given Narcan prior to Dustin arriving. FM ambulance paramedics explained that had Dustin not been there to perform CPR, the patient would have most likely died. For his actions that day, Dustin Quinn is presented with the Fargo Police Department Citizen Citation for Distinguished Service Award. Would Dylan MacArthur please step forward? On July 22nd, 2020, officers responded to an apartment building in South Fargo. An unknown male suspect made contact with a female resident and was acting suspicious. The female victim texted male friends about the suspicious male and asked for help. Dylan MacArthur arrived and searched the outside area and did not find anything unusual. Dylan checked the female victim's apartment to make sure everything was okay. While checking the apartment, Dylan located an unknown male suspect in the kitchen. Dylan put himself between the intruder and the female victim, telling her to run away. While the female victim was fleeing her apartment, a struggle ensued between Dylan and the suspect. During that struggle, Dylan was stabbed in the back. Dylan threw the suspect to the floor and was able to exit the apartment. Dylan encountered a violent and armed home intruder while helping a friend. He risked his life to prevent his friend from being harmed. For his actions that day, Dylan MacArthur is presented with a Fargo Police Department Citizen Citation for Distinguished Service Award. With the community engagement team of Sergeant Christy Jacobson, Officers Michael Bloom, Matt Niemeyer, David Carlson, Vince Kempf, Kyle Ness, Nick Chunnis, Matt Siders, Taylor Savageau, Derek Johnson, Josh Marbig, and Troy Nielsen, all please come forward. Some of the community engagement members from 2020 could not be here tonight. However, each of these employees played an incredibly important role in our community over the summer of 2020. All of these employees went above and beyond in helping our community recover peacefully from the riots of May 30th. I think I'm losing it, George. Yes. Every now and then my voice cracks, it'll come back. Right there.
Just a little bit of a pinch hitter. I was called upon for this role many a times in school. So while their roles varied throughout the protest events that followed the riots, each person's effort was for the same mission, relationship building within our community. Dozens of meetings and outreach events after the riots helped our community heal and build trust with our department. Members of the community engagement team met with individuals and listened as they voiced their concerns and issues. After listening, we gave our perspective and they listened. We were able to come to a mutual understanding and respect. It's meetings like this, which occurred dozens of times over the last year since May 30th. Our community engagement team played a role in ensuring our community came out of the riots as positively as possible. They allowed for community healing and understanding. Special mention goes to Sergeant Christy Jacobson for her leadership and tact throughout these difficult times. For their accomplishments in 2020, the community engagement team has earned the department's Commendable Service Award.
You want us to move together after you're going to say? Okay. This group does take direction sometimes.
Would Officer Cody Geese please come forward? Since being assigned to investigations, Detective Geese has excelled despite the challenges of COVID and the high amount of personal crimes that have occurred. Detective Geese is assigned as a property detective, but has also worked several high-profile personal crimes in 2020. Being a new detective, he needed little guidance on how to handle these calls and provided direction at the scene. Detective Geese is a valuable instructor for our department. He currently instructs firearms and room clearing. In 2015, Detective Geese was selected to be on the Red River Valley SWAT team. This past year, he has completed over 150 hours of training. In March, he successfully completed the Precision Rifle Workshop Police Basic Sniper School in Nunn, Colorado, and is fully certified as a sniper. Due to his work ethic and attention to detail, Detective Geese was selected to become a patrol training officer in 2018. During his time in patrol in 2018 and 2019, Detective Geese trained several recruits who are now excelling on their own. Since coming up to investigations, Detective Geese continues to be involved in the PTO program by becoming a Board of Evaluator member. Through his dedication, exemplary work, and positive attitude, Detective Geese has earned the department's Commendable Service Award.
I'll try this again. Would Sergeant Mike Sandin and Officer Jessica White please come forward? Sergeant Michael Sandin and Officer Jessica White served on a city hiring committee that was tasked with hiring the next Fargo police chief. With the political climate of the times, this was a daunting task. Sergeant Sandin and Officer White spent the necessary time convincing other members of the committee what the employees of the Fargo Police Department truly need in their next chief. Sergeant Sandin and Officer White took this task very seriously. They spent a lot of extra time and energy gathering the thoughts and opinions of our officers and employees, and bringing that information to the discussions with the committee. They also spent considerable time and energy setting up two-day meet and greet events where the officers could meet and interview the top 3 chief candidates. For their work on this important committee, Sergeant Sandin and Officer White received the Commendable Service Award. Would Officer Travis Berger please come forward? Officer Travis Berger currently serves in the administrative unit, and he is a department expert when it comes to recruiting and hiring. Officer Berger is also a gifted instructor who works hand in hand with the training division. During the pandemic, Officer Berger was able to create a survey system which allowed us to quickly identify officers exposed to COVID-19. Officer Berger then played a vital role in developing and implementing procedures when dealing with exposures. Officer Berger networked with the various colleges, criminal justice clubs, and previous applicants to get the word out that we would be holding an academy during the summer of 2020. Officer Berger then played an important role in coming up with an application process on our Fargo PD website to accept applicants for the academy. There was a huge response which led to over 100 applicants interviewing for the 20 designated academy spots. Officer Berger served on the interview panel and played a significant role in finding the perfect candidates. Officer Berger was able to find the perfect software solution to organize, store, and disseminate course material easy to carry into future academies. The same software system was then implemented into the PTO program. For his tremendous accomplishments in 2020, Officer Travis Berger receives a Commendable Service Award. Would Police Operations Technician Allison Hassel please come forward? In September 2020, upon learning Chief Zabolski would be the next chief at the Fargo Police Department, we were informed body-worn cameras would be a priority. A committee was formed, and Operations Tech Hassel had already begun researching the different companies. Hassel's prior research into body-worn camera companies substantially shortened the initial work of the committee. Excuse me. Hassel already had names of the companies, contact information for account representatives. The committee had a short timeline and needed to get the demonstrations scheduled very quickly, and Hassel completed the hardest task on the committee with ease. Allison has also provided a variety of investigative services to the Investigations Division. Hassel serves as a lead researcher for new technologies for the department. She helps with the scanner for scene investigations, obtained a new video software to help with video evidence transformations, and helps map out cell phone tower records. For her hard work and relentless research into new technology, Operations Technician Allison Hassel receives a Commendable Service Award. Would Police Support Specialists Gene Severson and Jennifer Johnson please come forward? Now, with me losing my voice a little bit and hoping I don't get choked up on this next one, because this one's rather special, as this award nomination was written by the late Joan Schaefer. She served as a support specialist for many years with the police department. Joan passed away in December of 2020. Out of respect for Joan, we will read her nomination as written. Joan wrote, "I wish to nominate Gene Severson and Jennifer Johnson for a Commendable Service Award for their months-long work creating a Fargo Police Department records manual." In March 2019, Sergeant Volrath sought volunteers to create a procedural manual outlining step-by-step instructions for all the tasks done by the record staff. Gene and Jen immediately volunteered their gifts and talents for this monumental task. They served as organizers by compiling a list of all the tasks performed by records personnel, which had never been done before. They monitored a list of records personnel assigned to write the procedures for each task. They decided when some duties description needed to be subcategorized, ending up with roughly 130 subcategories. They served as task masters by gently reminding staff when they lagged behind. Gene and Jen, with their organizational prowess, kept all of these things ordered very appropriately. They served as editors, editing submitted versions for consistency and continuity for the manual as a whole. They served as a human resource assistants when they decided to include a new employee section. This contains very helpful information at a new employee's fingertips, such as a setup checklist, vacation sick day procedures, and law enforcement acronyms that befuddled most people new to law enforcement. They served as publishers by designing the page format and the table of contents. After submitting to staff for final review and revisions, they created binders for those wishing to print copies of the manual. They knew procedure manuals quickly outdated themselves, so they brainstormed a mechanism to record necessary updates to the manual. After approximately 9 months of balancing their day-to-day duties and creating this manual, they gave birth to the first ever Fargo Police Department Records Manual in January 2020. They have been great about making additions and revisions to the manual already. It has been valuable to current personnel who may need to do a task in someone else's absence. We believe it will be a security blanket for new employees as they try to navigate the law enforcement world. I believe Gene and Jen's work is deserving of special recognition as they balanced their normal work responsibilities and created the manual. They showed teamwork and they capitalized on each other's talents in specific areas, the development of this manual. They created a working document that will make the work of the records department easier. Most amazingly, they did all of this with smiles on their faces. Never did they utter a frustrated grunt or send a nastygram when waiting for others to do their portion of the job. For their accomplishments, Police Support Specialists Gene Severson and Jennifer Johnson received the Commendable Service Award. What's that? Sure.
Would Sergeant Mark Licken and Sergeant Sam Bowman come forward, please? Sergeant Sam Bowman has been part of the police training officer program for 5 years. Over the years, he has distinguished himself by devoting his time and effort to the mission of making a positive impact on new Fargo Police Department recruit officers. For his dedication to this craft, Sergeant Sam Bowman has been presented with the PTO Service Award. Would Officer Tyler Nord, Officer Cody Geese, and Officer Matt Niemeyer please come forward? Over the past 5 years, Officer Geese has distinguished himself by providing exemplary service as a tactics operator on our SWAT team. Officer Niemeyer has done a fantastic job over the past 5 years with his role as a SWAT negotiator. For their dedication and reaching the appropriate milestones as active members of the Red River SWAT team, these individuals are presented with the SWAT Service Award.
We'll move on to the life-saving medal. Would Tyrell Foskey, Officer Tyrell Foskey, please come forward? On June 22nd, 2020, Officer Tyrell Foskey responded to an apartment in South Fargo regarding a heroin overdose. Officer Foskey found the male victim lying on the ground, struggling to breathe. The victim's girlfriend was frantic. The victim stopped breathing and no pulse was detected. Officer Foskey administered Narcan to the patient and immediately began CPR. After performing CPR for approximately 1 minute, Officer Foskey was able to detect a pulse on the patient. Paramedics then arrived and eventually the patient regained consciousness. For his actions, Officer Tyrell Foskey is presented with a life-saving medal. Would Officer Abe Moylan please come forward? On June 23rd, 2020, Officer Abe Moylan was dispatched to an infant choking. Officer Moylan was approached by the mother who was holding the child. He quickly noted the infant was not breathing. Officer Moylan checked the infant's airway and noted there was an obstruction. Officer Moylan faced the infant child face down and administered 2 back blows in an attempt to clear the obstructed airway. The infant began coughing slightly and began to cry, indicating the obstruction was no longer present and the child was now breathing. Officer Moylan's quick and decisive actions contributed to the child's survival. For his actions that day, Officer Moylan is presented with a life-saving medal. All right, you can't go anywhere, Abe. You got to stay up there. On October 27th, 2020, Officer Moylan responded to an unresponsive male at a residence in South Fargo. Officer Moylan determined the patient had a very weak pulse and was not breathing. Officer Moylan performed CPR for several minutes before FM ambulance arrived. FM took over and transported the patient to Sanford Medical Center. After the patient was transported, Officer Moylan continued his impressive work by comforting and talking to the patient's wife. The Sanford emergency room reported the patient was stable. For his actions, Officer Moylan is presented with another life-saving award. Would Officers Emily Martin and Dylan Fanning please come forward? On April 7th, 2020, Officer Emily Martin and Officer Dylan Fanning were dispatched to North Fargo for an unknown disturbance. Officers found several people running near some vehicles. One of the males began waving his hands at the officers and yelled there was an opioid overdose. The officers located an unresponsive female in the back seat of a vehicle. Officers determined she was not breathing and was turning blue. Officer Fanning administered Narcan while Officer Martin began CPR. After approximately 1 minute of continued chest compressions, the patient regained a pulse and started to breathe. She was eventually transported by ambulance to the ER. Due to their quick actions and teamwork, Officer Emily Martin and Officer Dylan Fanning are presented with a life-saving medal. Would Sergeant Mosier and Officer Lachlan Vera please come forward? On March 8th, 2020, officers responded to a report of a suicidal male. The male had cut his arm in an attempt to end his life. The officers located the male in a bathtub with a cut to his arm, resulting in an arterial bleed. Officer Berger applied pressure to the wound and packed it with gauze. Sergeant Mosier applied 2 tourniquets to the male's arm. The surgeon who treated the patient stated that without the actions of the officers, the victim would have died from blood loss. Due to their quick actions and teamwork, Sergeant Mosier and Officer Lachlan Vera are presented with a life-saving award. Would Officer Tyler Seehusen please come forward? On November 21st, 2020, officers responded to South Fargo for a medical situation involving an unconscious female who was not breathing. Officer Seehusen determined the patient did not have a pulse and began chest compressions until paramedics arrived. The actions taken by Officer Seehusen contributed to the patient's survival. For his efforts, Officer Tyler Seehusen is presented with a life-saving medal. Would Officer Rob Essler please come forward? On November 20th, 2020, Officer Rob Essler, along with several other officers, went to South Fargo for a male who had been shot. Officers were informed the shooter was still inside the residence and the victim was laying outside with a serious gunshot wound. Officers made the scene safe by quickly taking the suspect into custody. Officer Rob Essler, along with 2 other officers, made their way to the victim. The victim was still conscious but had a gunshot wound to his neck. Officer Essler immediately began packing the wound with gauze. The victim was then transported to the hospital and underwent immediate surgery. The trauma surgeon stated the officer who packed the wound most definitely saved the victim's life. For his efforts, Officer Robert Essler is presented with a life-saving medal. Would Officer Greg Schlangen please come forward? On December 26, 2020, Officer Schlangen responded to North Fargo for a male with chest pain and difficulty breathing. Officer Schlangen was able to find a weak pulse, but the victim had agonal breathing and was unconscious. Narcan was administered and the victim regained consciousness. The actions taken by Officer Schlangen contributed to the patient's survival. For his efforts, Officer Greg Schlangen is presented with a life-saving medal. We'll move on to the Chief's Medal. Would Sergeant Sandin, Sergeant Hannig, Officer Travis Berger, and Officer Lucas Mock please come forward? An agency the size of the Fargo Police Department constantly faces the challenge of recruiting and retaining officers. The Fargo Police Department needed something in place to assist with the never-ending problem of filling our roster. The Department Administration Division recognized this issue and developed a plan to have our own police academy. Under the supervision of Lieutenant Travis Stefanovic, Sergeant Troy Hannig, Sergeant Mike Sandin, Officer Travis Berger, and Officer Lucas Mock were tasked with tackling this daunting task. To describe in detail what the administration team did throughout the year to create and implement the Fargo Police Academy would take more time than we have time for in this ceremony. These team members put in extra hours, canceled vacation plans, and worked during holidays to complete this project for our department. They took ownership of the project and refused to settle for anything other than excellence. The result is what many have described as the best police academy in the state of North Dakota. In the end, the Fargo Police Academy proposal and implementation significantly benefited the city of Fargo and the Fargo Police Department. Our academy students are much more prepared for the life as a Fargo police officer. The administration team demonstrated outstanding leadership and professionalism by providing an unprecedented service. For their hard work, vision, and unwavering dedication throughout 2020, Sergeant Troy Hannig, Sergeant Mike Sandin, Officer Travis Berger, and Officer Lucas Mock are awarded the Chief's Medal. Would community service officers Kathy Spielman, Sarah Fix, Laverna Venti, Eric Harmon, and Michael DeFries please come forward? The year 2020 was perhaps one of the most difficult years for our community and our department. From global pandemics to nationwide and local social unrest, our community service officers were there to help us get through it all. When the COVID-19 pandemic began, we quickly identified our CSOs as employees we could count on for a plethora of tasks. Cleaning and disinfecting squad cars and workspaces certainly led to a lower infection rate in our staff. On May 30th, 2020, our city experienced violent demonstrations and rioting. This caused a great deal of stress to our officers. The CSOs once again stepped up to help. When officers returned from riots, social demonstrations, and the various protests that would occur over the coming months, the officers came home to a clean and comforting environment. The CSOs provided meals, beverages, and snacks for tired and beat-up officers. The CSOs did this while continuing to complete their regular assigned duties to the highest level. For their outstanding efforts throughout 2020, community service officers Kathy Spielman, Sarah Fix, Laverna Venti, Eric Harmon, and Michael DeFries are presented with the Chief's Medal. Good job, CSOs. Would Administrative Assistant to the Chief of Police, Patty Swift, please come forward? Patty Swift has served as the Administrative Assistant to the Chief of Police for 20 years. Although the majority of her work often goes unnoticed, Patty has a busy job with various responsibilities, from scheduling meetings for Chief Zabolski or completing the department payroll. Patty completes all of her tasks in a very competent manner. Because of her organization, dedication, and dependability, many responsibilities required from the office of the chief are carried out with grace and professionalism. During Patty's tenure as administrative assistant, she has worked for 4 different chiefs. Patty was one of the first to start making plans for Chief Todd's retirement and preparing for the process of welcoming Chief Zabolski. Patty works hard to help not only Chief Zabolski, but other department members as well. She is a knowledgeable resource and is always willing to answer questions. Patty is responsible for arranging all department retirement celebrations. These opportunities to recognize employees' contributions to the department have been very appreciated by retirees over the years. Most of us just show up to the celebrations without realizing the effort Patty has put towards organizing the celebration, ordering the food, sending out invitations, and arranging for the retirement gifts. In fact, setting up for this celebration as well. For her exemplary work throughout 2020, Administrative Assistant Patty Swift is awarded the Chief's Medal. Would Officers Aaron Olson, Stephen Quinn, Trey Schmidt, and Paul Simonson please come forward? It's my understanding Officer Quinn could not be here tonight. On September 9th, 2020, Officer Aaron Olson initiated a traffic stop on a male suspect to investigate a driving under suspension violation along with an open warrant. Officer Quinn arrived as the backup officer. Officers confirmed the warrant was active, and Officer Olson and Officer Quinn informed the suspect he was under arrest. The suspect resisted, and during the struggle, the suspect would not give up his right hand, which was pinned underneath him. Officers Trey Schmidt and Paul Simonson arrived and began assisting with the resistive subject. The suspect then pulled his right hand from under his abdomen, drawing a concealed .40 caliber semi-automatic pistol from his waistband. The suspect pointed the handgun directly at Officer Quinn's face. Officer Quinn reacted immediately by ripping the handgun out of the suspect's hand and throwing it a safe distance away. Officers were able to secure the loaded handgun immediately. The suspect was taken into custody without injury. Officers faced a resistive and desperate individual armed with a deadly weapon. They acted appropriately and bravely. For their actions, Officers Aaron Olson, Stephen Quinn, Trey Schmidt, and Paul Simonson are awarded the Combat Cross Medal. At this time, I will hand it back to Chief Zabolski as he presents the remaining awards.
Thank you, sir. Last 3 awards of the evening. We'll start with the Supervisor of the Year. What's nice about these awards, too, that many of you may not know, is that the nominations come from peers, people that work with the officers or the civilians, and they're nominating people that they work with. They're recognizing their good work. It can also come from supervisors. In some cases, that's the case as well. And then we have an awards committee that looks all these over and helps make some of the final decisions. So these are pretty big deals in terms of all of the awards, but especially these last 3, I think, because these all came from other members of the department, and in many cases, more than one member recognizing the good work that these folks are doing. Lieutenant Stefanovic, please come on up. Lieutenant Travis Stefanovic was assigned to the administrative division throughout 2020. Some of his duties included managing department budgets and overseeing the training unit. He was the department resource for budget issues and is always quick to respond to questions or problems. Lieutenant Stefanovic demonstrated strong leadership in 2020. He consistently leads by example and lays out clear expectations for his coworkers. An example of this was the creation and implementation of the department's first police academy. Lieutenant Stefanovic had a vision for several years of creating an all-encompassing Fargo Police Academy. An enormous amount of work went into this huge project, and he played a key role in making this a success. Our department now has its own police academy, which not only trains our students in more of a Fargo PD fashion, but also acts as an important recruiting tool for hiring new officers. Lieutenant Stefanovic kept this project steered in the right direction, and his overall supervision contributed greatly with producing what many consider to be the best academy. I'll just say it is the best academy in the state of North Dakota, and I would say a really big deal for our department. Without this mechanism in place right now, I'm certainly very grateful for his vision and efforts and that of the team. We would be really hard-pressed from a recruitment standpoint. Law enforcement recruitment is not easy anywhere, and in many places it's getting much more difficult for a variety of reasons. Setting up our own academy, which still has to be sanctioned by the North Dakota Post out of Bismarck, really gives us a lot more capacity and ability than we've had in the past. So this was a huge deal. He also became the administrator for the department's PTO training program. He takes newly hired recruit officers and molds them into fully trained police officers. Once again, demonstrated exemplary leadership and vision with this program. He also implemented some changes which made the PTO program better and also more cost-effective. There are many examples of excellence in his work ethic, leadership, and dedication. And he also not only got me through the physical training aspect. What's that, the PTA, PRA? ERA, there you go. I don't know, he was a little skeptical, but we got through it, so that was good. But definitely a leader in our department. I appreciate his efforts. For his outstanding work and efforts throughout 2020, he's presented the 2020 Fargo Police Department Supervisor of the Year Award. Okay, Connie Nicktorn, could you step up, please? Is Connie here? Aha. So once again, nominated by her supervisor and others. Connie's actually a detective in our investigations division. She's been a detective with the Fargo Police Department for 6 years, currently assigned to crimes against children. Throughout 2020, she's demonstrated outstanding service and professionalism. She has investigated several complex cases in 2020, ranging from assaults on infants to attempt murder. Detective Nicktorn is one of the senior members of the CAC, Crimes Against Children team, displays a strong work ethic. She pursues a case with tenacity, and we couldn't put this in the certificate, but according to her supervisor, she pursues her cases like a wild animal. So, suspects out there, beware. She's persistent, which is exactly what we need when we're protecting the public, especially kids. She involves prosecutors early in the process and ensures everything gets done. Cass County Social Services members are happy to hear when she's assigned because they know she won't let up and sees everything through to the end. Detective Nicktorn is a trained forensic interviewer of children and continues to serve as a member of the training committee at the Red River Children's Advocacy Center. Detective Nicktorn proved to be an excellent resource and mentor to other detectives who joined the CAC team in 2020. She got new members involved in investigations to help with their development. She's quick to acknowledge the good work of her peers and lets her supervisors know about it. And she demonstrates strong leadership. Detective Nicktorn volunteers to pair with new recruit officers during their investigations training day. She also volunteers as an instructor for the new Fargo Police Academy. Not only does she have the desire to improve herself and her immediate team, but she strives to improve the department as a whole. Detective Nicktorn generally cares about all members of the department and looks out for their wellness. As an example, when Detective Nicktorn approached her supervisor to discuss a fellow detective's workload and the stress it was causing, Detective Nicktorn recognized the problem and did what she could to help. Not only is she an outstanding detective, leader, and mentor, she's also a kind, approachable, and compassionate person. With her current assignment, she sees the worst of humanity involving young children as victims. This is incredibly hard work with lasting effects on those who have to witness such terrible crimes. She faces this every day with passion and dedication, and we are fortunate to have her as a member of the department. For her exemplary work throughout 2020, Detective Connie Nicktorn is presented with the Fargo Police Department Officer of the Year Award. And last but not least, Kathy Spielman gets to make one more return to the red carpet. This is the Civilian Employee of the Year. Community Service Officer Kathy Spielman is a dedicated member of the Fargo Police Department and has continuously demonstrated this throughout her career. 2020 was a very difficult year for the department. Kathy once again stepped up and did an enormous amount of work. The COVID-19 pandemic created many problems for staff. Precautions were put in place and they were frequently changing. Squad cars and equipment needed to be constantly cleaned and sanitized. Kathy took a big role in keeping up on this task and often volunteered for this work that went beyond what was expected. She took it upon herself to accommodate officers with equipment issues, and she made sure the cleaning products were fully stocked. This all, by the way, is not necessarily in her job description, nor any of the CSOs that we recognized earlier, so they really stepped up. In May of 2020, civil unrest created a very stressful and dangerous situation for our department personnel, as well as the public. This is the first time our community has experienced this. In the coming months, we would see several protests and demonstrations, which would drain our staffing ability. Throughout this time, Kathy worked very hard to take care of officers by helping with equipment, preparing food, and coordinating efforts to take care of whatever our personnel needed. She also made frequent trips to keep supplies available. She was working very hard with a sense of urgency to complete tasks, all the while never allowing her positive attitude to falter. Kathy would frequently come up with recommendations on how to improve things for officers. She would also identify issues and come up with solutions or plans to fix the problems. She balanced these efforts while completing her regular CSO duties and did so with very little supervision. Kathy is a selfless team member who never expects recognition for her work. She is a humble person who serves the public and department members with a full heart. Her positive and professional attitude sets an example for all of us. I can tell you that she's also brought forward a number of initiatives since I've been in place here as well to try and provide better service and make things easier for her team. So for her outstanding work and dedication throughout 2020, Community Service Officer Kathy Spielman is presented with the Fargo Police Department Civilian Employee of the Year Award. Okay, let's see where we are now. Okay. Again, really great work on everyone's part here. We're going to close with a little philosophy because philosophy is important. So we're going to go Plato, who who's quoted as saying, "In a republic that honors the core of democracy, the greatest amount of power is given to those called guardians. Only those with the most impeccable character are chosen to bear the responsibility of protecting the democracy. That's a responsibility that our department and our personnel take very seriously. As you can see by today's presentation, the Fargo Police Department is filled with dedicated individuals who possess impeccable character and competence. Further, we strive for improvement on a daily basis. The stories you have heard tonight are but a sampling of the dedicated and heroic work that occurs every day within our police department. It's important to note that the work of all of our staff is critical to the overall success of the team. I'm extremely proud of all of them and look forward to our future successes. Thanks to all of our officers as well and their great families whose love and support keeps us going, and thanks to our community for your support and assistance. Collectively, we keep each other safe." Again, let's give one more round of congratulations to our recipients. And if you would just please rise while we retire the colors. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. You're certainly welcome to stay and take pictures with family up front here if you wish. Have a good evening. Stay safe. Thank you.